mission, should you choose to accept it.
It's a quest. It's a quest for fun.
Well, The Rock says, why don't we just cut right to the chase?
Okay, now he wants to get together. Well, he wants to talk.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
It's showtime, folks!
What are you?
Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Ryan of Neuroculture. Welcome to another exciting episode of And I Quote, the live weekly show where we bring in a special guest from any and all corners of the nerd universe. We find out a little bit more about them and what projects they may have coming down the line. Joining us this week, I gotta say, all of us here at Neuroculture have been looking forward to having this nice young man in the studio. He is an independent writer, a publisher, a podcaster, and a person who I like to refer to as the Mr. Rogers of the internet. Please welcome Brian K. Morris to the show. Brian, how you doing, my man?
I am doing great, Ryan. How are you today, sir?
I could not be any happier. The weather is nice. I hope the weather is nice in your neck of the woods because it is approaching summer. Everyone's excited to get out and about. The pandemic is slowly but surely starting to come to a close. All that good stuff. We couldn't be happier. But anyway, listen, just want to let all of you know who are watching us live. If you have any questions for our guest, Brian K. Morris, during the course of this very program, drop them in the live chat, drop it in the comments section below. Our producers are going to be monitoring it as we go throughout the course of the show. So in the meantime, just kick back, relax. Hopefully you'll enjoy this thing, and hopefully Brian K. Morris won't drive this show off the rails. Maybe, maybe not. I can't make any promises. But, Brian, first things first, I got to ask you this, just to get a little bit of a breaking of the ice here, an icebreaker, if you will.
Icebreaker.
Yeah. What would you say were some of your favorite books or writers growing up?
Well, I had a lot of them. You know, I always say that as a writer, as a creator, you are basically the sum of the people you have read, the various influences, conscious or unconscious. My first grown-up book was Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, which probably explains a lot about my personality. I read it when I was in third grade. So that's a huge influence. I was also influenced by a lot of the pulp writers from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. In fact, I picked up something yesterday.
Really?
Lester Dent, I got to show this off. And kudos to Comics Cubed and Kokomo for this. I picked up one of the original Doc Savage pulps yesterday.
Ooh, excellent.
Yeah, but something off the bucket list. I've always wanted to own one of these. But yeah, I grew up reading the Doc Savage adventures, The Shadow, Phantom Detective, Dusty Ayres and his Battle Aces, a lot of the pulp writers, which then once you go out from there, you're also running into horror with Robert Bloch, who wrote Psycho. Robert E. Howard, who created Conan, H.P. Lovecraft, who created the Cthulhu mythos, and all the writers that plugged into them, Isaac Asimov. And then I got into the 70s adventure novels like Mac Bolan by Don Pendleton, who I got to meet once. He was great. Richard Sapir and Warren Murphy, who did Remo Williams, The Destroyer. And then all these guys with all these terrible sounding names like Edge, The Penetrator, a lot of stuff. Good thing my mother was like this stuff too, and I was of age. Otherwise, she'd have had that talk with me, I'm sure. But yeah, I grew up reading, like, I guess what a lot of people would at the time would call trash literature. Although I did read the classics like Dickens and Moby Dick and all those things. But a lot of my stuff was very pop culture oriented. And kind of retro. So that's influenced me creatively in a lot of ways. And also the work ethic of those guys, because these were guys that weren't getting royalties unless they sold a book. You know, like when they wrote for something like this, like a backup story in here, they got paid for that and they're done. And they literally, people like Lester Dent and not Maxwell Grant, but the guy who wrote The Shadow, basically they were beating typewriters to death with their fingertips. And that's the sort of work ethic I admire and I'm trying to emulate in my own career. there. So those are a lot of my influences. Plus, as far as comic books, Stan Lee, Gardner Fox, Alan Moore, Roy Thomas, huge influence. And unfortunately, a lot of the era that I come from, a lot of names of the writers of these stories, never got written down. So we don't know who they all are. And a lot of people have made an educated guess from the style of writing, etc. For instance, you could probably tell a difference between, say, an Alan Moore story and, say, a Gardner Fox story from the 40s, as opposed to, say, Alan Moore and Grant Morrison, who are very similar in styles. But, but basically it's everybody I've ever read or heard or watched on TV. That all goes pouring into here, and then somehow it comes out through here, hopefully coherently, which is then my job. So,
yeah, I hope to read more of some of those stories featuring, what is it, Doc Savage. I am a big fan of The Shadow. I have a CD collection that I got at a convention of. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the person's name. Who is this? It was Citizen Kane. He was the voice of the Shadow for a number of the radio plays. Orson Welles, thank you. Yes.
Theater. Oh, wait until you hear, if you haven't already, the Panic broadcast of 1938.
Yeah, so I got some of those. I have a few Shadow trades, paperbacks. Some of the more modern day writers took their spin on the character. Really like for example, The Shadow, The Death of Margot Lane is my favorite Shadow trade.
Yes, that's an excellent book.
Which I hope gets adapted into a series or a movie one day. Please reboot The Shadow, please.
Well, somebody already has. James Patterson, of all people, has just released a brand new Shadow novel. Now, I haven't read it yet, so I can't really say for myself. I have had some acquaintances read it. Moving on with your next question, Ryan.
Yeah, but
that's your clue.
Yes. Aside from that, send me the information when you have an opportunity.
Yeah, I will.
About The Shadow being rebooted. Aside from that, look forward to reading stories featuring those classic characters from some of those, classic writers and so on and so forth. So the next thing I have for you, when did you specifically decide to become a writer yourself?
Oh, I had an unfortunate encounter with the English language when I was in 7th grade.
Middle school years.
Yeah, trauma I'm still dealing with even at my advanced age. But no, we had just come back from Christmas vacation, and we all had to do those usually tedious what I did over my Christmas vacation. We exchanged gifts and we ate a lot and we had Christmas. The end. And so I was reading mine, and I'd always been a storyteller of sorts because I used to fill in the stories between each issue of the Fantastic Four because I wanted more, so I made up my own. And so I was reading my essay to the class out loud, unfortunately, about how beautiful the tree was. And I meant to say that my parents were admiring the lit up Christmas tree. Unfortunately, due to the arrangement of the words I had used, I made it sound like my teetotaling parents were lit up, which did not thrill my teacher, nor did it thrill my parents when she called them later that night. So I decided that I needed to learn how to do this Englishing thing a little bit more skillfully. And then it dawned on me that somebody got paid to put those words in the balloons of the comic books I was reading. And I'm like, the light bulb went off. And from there, I'm mostly self-taught, but I did a lot of reading, like Writer's Digest, The Writer, which are both still being published and still great resources, and plus reading books on writing. In fact, I've got, you can't see it from here, but like about 10 o'clock, I've got some of the books I grew up with reading that I still have. Like I've got one by Dean R. Koontz on writing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I wish that was still in print. That was so helpful. And books by like J. Michael Straczynski, a great one by Lawrence Block, who is a super mystery writer, called Telling Lies for Fun and Profit.
That makes a lot of that makes a bit of sense.
Yeah, well, my wife refers to me as a professional liar. So,
boy, that's a lovely name to be called around the house. Liar, liar, pants on fire.
I know. I'm so used to it, though. However, it's kind of alluring now. But anyway, no, I still read books on writing. I still absorb stuff on little tricks that it's nothing that you have to sit down and say, okay, here are the rules to writing, because aside from proper grammar, and a little bit of the punctuation, of course, thank God for Grammarly.com. A lot of it is pretty easy. Now, I do use a framework in my writing that was actually created by Lester Dent, who wrote as Kenneth Roberson and was a very prolific writer of pulps. And it's basic, and you can find it online. It's called the Lester Dent Master Plot, and it's basically a framework for introducing conflict, how to resolve conflict, how to build up your story. And he sold every story he's ever done using that formula. And I've got to say, it does work, because I also work for a number of other publishers too. And I use that as kind of like I said, it's not really a formula. It's a poor word choice, Brian. More of a framework and a guidepost to help you plot out your book. And I am a plotter with a little bit of panzer deep inside. So.
No, I get it, and that's fascinating stuff. Very fascinating stuff. There's no question about it. Now, what would you say have been some of the biggest rewards of being a writer?
Oh my gosh. Oh man. Picking out thank goodness you made that plural. I love it when people come up and ask me when the next Volcana is coming out, or are you writing a Santa Stein sequel? I think possibly the best compliment I ever got, however, aside from a couple of professionals who told me they really dig my stuff, a friend of mine, his 8-year-old daughter decided she wanted to read comics. And so dad, you said, well, what do you want to read? What kind of would you be interested in? And she kind of narrowed it down. She wanted something funny. And I just read one. It was a revival of a character called Spencer Spook. And my friend brought her to my table so that I could sell her very first comic book. All feels right. That's a little hard to top. But also, I mentioned Warren Murphy earlier. When I had just finished my first book, Bloodshot: The Coldest Warrior, I always promote. Somebody asked me online on Facebook, well, how did you assemble this? And his website has like a 12-step program, so to speak, on how to basically build up your novel. And I accidentally tagged Warren Murphy, who I'd been following. And I didn't realize this till later, until Warren Murphy sent me a PM saying, thank you for the shout out, Brian. Good luck with your career. So it's just a lot of little things along the path that continually happen that, and I get to hang out with folks like you, Ryan. I mean, in all seriousness, I get to do great shows like this. I get to meet the most amazing people. I get to sleep at some of the best Super 8s across the country. It's the rock and roll lifestyle. I'm living La Vida Loca here.
Yeah, Super 8 Motel. I haven't heard that name in a long time, but I respect the reference and I understand it completely. I remember seeing a few commercials when I was a bit younger, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't see too many of those rolling around anymore. But hey, it is what it is. Now, on the other side of the fence here, what would you say have been some of the challenges of being a writer?
Oh, well, one of the challenges is I'm a full-timer because I had a fairly nice office job until 2012 when a bookkeeping overage forced the company to let about 24 people go in the state of Illinois. And I was one of them because I kept telling people, I'm not going to tell you what, I was usually the guy, I did have set duties, but I was usually the guy that picked up the slack. And I used to kid people that I'm not going to tell you everything I do around here, but when I stop doing it, you'll know. Apparently, and also I was one of the last people hired in the office, even at 11 years. That's how cushy the job could be. But anyway, they let me go with a wonderful severance package, which is what I used to start my writing career. Just being a full-time writer is a tough gig in that, like if you don't self-publish, you are always looking for outside work. And that in itself can be an emotional roller coaster, if you don't know how to deal with rejection. But that's the nice thing about self-publishing. If somebody else doesn't want it down the road, I'll publish it. So I am basically impervious to rejection now. And just the sheer fact that I physically have to write this stuff, and it only comes out as fast as I can think of it and as fast as I can put it down on paper. And then there's the process of self-publishing with editing, layout, a lot of decision making. That's the toughest part. And travel, since I do. In the past, I've before the My Sharona Miley Cyrus Peter pandemic, you knew I'd work that in.
I love the name and the creativity. So
thank you. Well, otherwise, we're on YouTube. I don't want to get us demonetized. Anyway,
true.
I'm here. I'm your friend. But anyway, no, I have traveled in a 6-state area.
Wow.
But the thing is, like in any sort of freelance opportunity, if you were a musician, let's say you live in Indianapolis, you have a gig in Columbus, Ohio, or Chicago, you're going to grab your amp, you're going to grab your axe and your wires, and you're going to make the trip. Same thing for writers. In fact, I was talking to somebody very recently. They were asking me, do you know of any shows? Because we had a fantastic one last week in Peoria, the Indie Author Book Expo. And I said, well, there's this one. And they're like, oh, no, that's 3 hours away. That's too far to drive. And I'm like, 3 hours? I have an agenda usually that's next door. It's not even an overnight for me anymore. It's one of those things where in this business, in fact, in any creative business, I would think you do what you have to do to forward your career, as long as it's ethical, of course. And also it's a great way to meet your audience one-on-one. And I've made a lot of really dear friends from my travels, and this year with things opening up as they are, I'm excited. I don't have quite the agenda I did in previous years, but I'm excited because there's people I haven't seen in 2 years. And now I'm going to, I'm not only going to get to see them like eye to eye, we might even hug, who knows? Cause I'm a hugger. I really am.
Yeah. A lot of people around the world come from hugging families. I come from one myself. So if I see my best friends in the convention, or if I haven't seen them in 2 or 3 years, especially with with everything that's been going on, I'm going to want to embrace you and say, hey, we're still here, we're still standing. There's a reason for that. So let's celebrate it. Why the heck not? Exactly.
And as more people get the vaccine and the vaccines, or rather, it's going to get easier. So I tend to think of creative people as being smarter than most people. So that's my platform. That's my soapbox right now.
Exactly. If you want to go down that road, that's fine with me. Now, this kind of leads me. You kind of mentioned it a moment ago. This leads into my next question. So I'm glad you brought up a little bit of a segue here. Any special memories from being at conventions or other book signing events for you, or with you and your colleagues or friends?
Oh well, there is one Huddle House in Southern Illinois that probably has our pictures over the cash register to make sure we don't go back. It's one of those things where, it was one of those things where a bunch of us, after this one show in Southern Illinois, we assembled at the Huddle House after the show, and we get together, we start talking, we start laughing, and I noticed that there were people sitting next to us, and they were talking, we're laughing loud. And now this line of people are moved a little bit back. And by the time we were done with our meal, like everybody's like pushed up against the far wall, like we're holding them hostage or something. I don't know if we're quite welcome back there anymore. But no, it's seeing a whole lot of people. And I'm not talking about the that's nice type of people, bless your little heart. But no, I meet a lot of wonderful creative people. I was at a show about a little over 2 years ago, where we were, and I'll shout him out, Rick Bradley. He was part of an audience that I was there with a pair of my friends, Kathy Jackson and Amy Hale, and we were talking about writing. And he was giving us question after question after question. And that followed up on the panel. He was asking us so many great questions. He was really zeroing in on us, what he needed to do. 4 months later, he got his first published story.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we are so proud of that, man. And and there's other people like Michaela Jade who she did the same thing. She went to a con and she went to a book show and just started asking these authors, how did you do this? What do I need to do? And she just took it all in. And now she has got her first trilogy published, and she's doing spectacularly. Plus, she's a broadcaster on the Rising Tide Broadcast Network. Hashtag always promote.
Yeah, after a show one time, she got in touch with me and she says to me, "Are you still looking for summer reading recommendations?" I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, why would I say yes? I am. And then she dropped me her 3 links to her 3 books, and I'm thinking, well, she knows how to self-promote, doesn't she? But in the best way, Michaela.
Yeah.
We love it. We absolutely love it. And I look forward to reading your books too, because when you send me the links to your friendly neighborhood Amazon, I read the synopsis because before I buy a book, I need a little bit of an idea. What am I in for? So I read the synopsis and I'm thinking, all right, some fantasy, some other elements thrown into good measure, adventure, maybe a little bit of romance thrown in there for good measure. I'm fine with that. I can roll with it.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go, Michaela. Don't get me wrong. I still got like 17 books in my closet I need to read first, but as soon as I get through those, don't worry, I'll go on my Amazon wish list and just click buy this, buy this, buy this. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, the Nevermorians, you know who you are. You're making my Amazon list grow by the week. Trust me.
It's a wonder Ryan's still speaking to me.
Honestly, it really is, because you just throw so many titles my way. And then I get messages from your friends saying, hey, you want recommendations? Here, I got one for you. And then they throw me 3 more. And then 2 more come on top of that. And I'm thinking, did I just dig my own grave for the last 6 months that I've been chiming in on Brian's show? Never mind the furthermore, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Good heavens.
Good man.
See, there you go. See, I remembered. It's here. And that too. Clever title pending, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Tuesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Very good. And I don't have a sophisticated graphic for it. Yeah, see, we have sophisticated graphics too. Comic Book Spectrum, Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern time, where we talk about comics because we love comics.
And I do too. And I just became a comics fan in 2017 on Batman Day, of all places.
Very good. Very good.
So... yeah. What can I tell you? Everyone did, but I grew up because I'm Batman. I grew up on Batman, so why not?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was part of my youth, too, even when I was younger. I mean, I've always still liked Superman a little better because Batman doesn't have heat vision to fry his enemies with. So.
And so on and so forth. So, that is brilliant, by the way. Those memories of how you got kicked out of that one place and you end up meeting a whole bunch of other people and became BFFs after that.
Yeah, seriously.
I see what you did there. It's clever. So this may be a bit of, you may have heard this question once or twice before, but I'm just curious. What advice would you have for aspiring writers out there in the world?
For the most part, I would say, first of all, start writing. The second bit of advice is finish what you write. And just, because I talk to a lot of people who, when I'm on the road or online, who are like, well, how do I do what you do? And I tell them, well, you start writing, start reading about writing, start filling your head with different authors, not necessarily even the authors of the genre you like. I've read romance authors. I've read technical books. I've read all kinds of things, and it kind of all works into my style. But basically start writing because that already puts you into a rare bit of air here, because like I said, I see a lot of people who are like, well, how do I start? Oh, well, I can't do that because I've got fill in the blank to do. And and it's one of those things where the great salesman and motivational speaker Zig Ziglar said, everyone gets the same 24 hours. It's what you do with them that determines how you're going to live. And if you can just hammer out even just a 15 minutes or half an hour to sit down and write, even if it's just a pad of paper and a pen, and you're creating a new world, because you don't know who, aside from entertaining somebody, you don't know who you're talking off the ledge. I've one story I've told frequently was one of my earliest appearances. I was talking to somebody who asked me a similar question. And at the time I had 2 books out. The Bloodshot book based on the Valiant Comics character, and my international big seller, Sandestein, the post-holiday Prometheus. But the gentleman asked me, he said, well, I've got this idea for a story. And I said, well, good, start writing. He goes, I started writing. I said, excellent, that's good. Now finish it. And he goes, well, I plan to. And he told me he's not going to let anything get in his way. He said, but what do I do? It's kind of offbeat, And I told him about self-publishing as opposed to traditional publishing, and he was warm to that idea. Yeah. But he goes, well, who would want to read my stuff? And I'm like, dude, I've got a book out that's selling that is about a nanite-filled former government assassin, and then I've got another book about Santa Claus being assembled from pieces of the recently dead, and I've got a following already. And that's where marketing comes in. And this middle-aged lady poked her head from around this guy and went and vanished. And I'm like, okay. And then she came back 20 minutes later, and the thing was, she is a woman who everything she does is ruled by her faith in God.
Ooh.
And she prays over every major decision. She is a very devout lady, wonderful lady.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, at the time she had 2 daughters, like 15 and 16, and they're at that age where mom doesn't know nothing. But the thing is, they would read things on their phone and go, oh, okay, I get it. Oh, yeah, now I understand. What mom wanted to do was write a book that explained why her faith was so important to her. She told me she wasn't even looking to make her kids come to God.
Mm-hmm.
She just wanted those girls to understand why she did what she did. And that's powerful. That's powerful. And that shows you what creativity can do, because I've talked to people who were depressed and they read a book of mine and they dug it and it kind of got them through. And I've got stories of other writers. I know one about a guy who collected Spider-Man comics, and he was going to go down, and his life was just, doing a screaming power dive into the toilet. And so his plan for that day was, which he started to execute, was he bought his favorite Spider-Man comic, backed into his garage, closed the door with the motor still running. And he was going to read this comic, and his last act on Earth was going to read this comic. And he got to the end of the comic, and something in that book made him throw open the car door, run open and open that garage door and go outside and start gulping as much fresh air as he could get.
Mm-hmm.
That is the power of good writing applied to the right person at the right time. And that is also one of the things I think keeps a lot of us going in the field, because we don't know whose life we're going to improve. It may sound a little pretentious, and it may sound like we're trying to bat above our weight class here, but there's a number of people that enjoy what we do, and I figure even if we can make them turn off the news for 20 minutes and just fall into another world where everything starts to make sense again, then I think we're doing our jobs.
I would say so. Did you hear that, friends? My goodness, I don't know how I can follow that up with the next question. What am I even doing here? But that is...
welcome to Nevermind the Furthermore.
I know, right? Someone actually mentioned that in the chat, and I'll bring up that comment once we get towards the conclusion of this program. But I will say, great stories. Happy that everyone's doing okay and things like that. You kind of mentioned a few of these names a little bit earlier on, but I'm just curious. Yes. Who would you say are some of your favorite writers nowadays in today's modern world?
Oh, well... aside from many people in my peer group, like Kathy Jackson, Amy Hale, and
time to raise some hail.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
get your hail spells ready. Charles F. Millhouse, who wrote the award-winning, the other hand, Brian, the award-winning Pulp Reality #1, which I'm in, and followed up by Pulp Reality #2, and he and I are working on a project together right now.
Beautiful.
Jim Beard, John C. Bruning, like I said, a lot of my contemporaries, Ron Fortier. But other people like outside of my sphere, Grant Morrison, Alan Moore, Stephen Moffat, talk about current writers. There's just a whole lot of people. I've got like 4 stacks on the floor that you will not be allowed to see of books that I have not gotten to yet. But yeah, those are just a few of the people I like. I like people who don't exactly take the easy path in writing and pull in wild concepts and have a brilliant way of describing them. I mean, Stephen Moffat's dialogue for like just on his Doctor Who alone just thrills me to death. Lance Parkin is another great writer. He's a British writer who's done a number of Doctor Who books and other things. Andrew Cartmel, Ben Aronovich, who they're working on a comic book series called The Rivers of London about a special division of Scotland Yard that is set up strictly for the supernatural crimes. Kind of like a Dresden Files, but British.
Yeah, it was kind of leaning in that direction. I mean, I
Yeah.
wasn't exactly thinking of the Dresden Files, but I'm thinking, Supernatural. That's a bit more sci-fi or into mystery a little bit there, thriller, if you will.
Yeah, it's a little combination of police procedural, which I grew up enjoying, like John Creasy and stuff, and just basic hocus pocus stuff. So it's a very enjoyable series, and it's based on a series of novels which I haven't read yet by Ben Aronovich. So.
And speaking of Hocus Pocus, they're making a sequel to that 35 years later. Who'd have thunk, Disney? Who'd have thunk, Disney? Why? Why are you doing it? It makes no sense to me, but it makes sense to, I guess, the cult following that it does have.
Yeah. Well, what tickles me about that is that they're not seriously recasting it. Because I heard something from John Waters, the great director, B-movie director, years ago. He asked, why are studios remaking great films?
Yeah.
Why are we
or
really
rebooting
making
properties that don't necessarily need to be rebooted?
Yeah, it's like, how do you remake Citizen Kane? That sort of thing. How do you? Every few years, I keep hearing about. Well, let's do a new version of Casablanca. No. The first one was, sheer perfection. You had the perfect cast, great chemistry, and
Ingrid Bergman.
Heavens, yes.
When she walked into Rick's Cafe Americano, I'm thinking to myself, who is this woman? And I want to know more. Because the first time I saw the movie, I'm thinking to myself, this is just brilliant picture looking. And then you got Bogey chewing up the scenery, and then she walks through the door. Yeah. And I'm thinking, this woman is. I mean, granted, I know it's the 40s, but just bear with me here. Yeah. She's drop dead gorgeous. She's beautiful. She looks she's smart, but what is she doing here? What's her deal? Why is she here? I want to know more. And then she walks over to the piano player.
Yeah.
Hi, Sam. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Wait a minute. You two know each other? What is going on here? This isn't right. But then it just goes on, and Casablanca is one of my top favorite movies of all time.
Mine too.
First time I saw it was on PBS. They were doing a movie night, and they aired it commercial free, I might add.
Oh, yes.
So I watched the movie on PBS or WQED Pittsburgh, whatever it was. Tape it, watch it, and I'm thinking, all right, this movie's so good. I'm going to go to. By the way, this was back when Movie Stop was still a thing. It's a sublet of GameStop. So I go over to Movie Stop and I said, hey, I want to buy a Casablanca. Do you have a copy? No, but we can order it for you. I'm like, do it. Do it
now.
Do it.
I'll wait.
Make it happen. So they ordered it for me, and then I came back like a week or two later, and I'm thinking to myself, all right, let me see what this is going to look like. Then I look on the back, and it's like, it's a new HD transfer, and all these bonus features are around it. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to have a great weekend. Great weekend, ladies and gentlemen. You know why? Because it is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. That's what it is.
Well played, young man. Well played. And here's a little bit of trivia for the audience if you didn't know this. One of the screenwriters of Casablanca was Lee Brackett. She was married to a prominent comic book and pulp writer named Edmund Hamilton. Lee Brackett was also the scriptwriter of The Empire Strikes Back. I believe what I need to do now is...
Gosh.
So
no one has done that forever, and you did it on this very program. And just to give everyone a bit of fun facts behind the scenes here, this is the 30th episode of And I Quote. So someone needed to drop the mic, and I was glad that it was my guest rather than me, because my microphone's right here and I don't want to mess with that.
Yeah,
so
mine's just off camera here. So.
Exactly. This is somewhat sensitive technical equipment, and we don't want to damage it by any stretch of the imagination. So
yes.
There you go. Try to keep that in mind as we roll along. But yes, Casablanca is one of the greatest of all time. I mean, everyone would agree with me. You go outside the door, you ask 10 people, and they've seen Casablanca, they're going to say to themselves, yes, it's a definition of a great movie. It's a definition of great directing, great filmmaking, no wonder it won the Oscars when it did in its respective year.
Yeah, and when you find out the story behind the making of it, makes you appreciate the film even more.
Yeah, there's a book. I have a book in my possession. It's here, either down here in one of my cases with other books, but I think it's called The Making of Casablanca. I forget who wrote the book, but it's a great novel, great book, great behind-the-scenes stories and everything. And I'm thinking to myself, man, this movie had trouble getting to the studio, and then it had trouble shooting, and then they were going to reshoot the ending, and then they did it again, and then Bogey and Ingrid Bergman were trying to figure out what was going on during certain scenes.
Oh, yeah.
And they were kind of doing it by the seat of their pants, and I'm thinking, well, it doesn't show it like that on screen. When you see it on screen, it looks like it just moves smoothly as velvet.
Yeah, it does, which makes the end result even more amazing.
And you got my boy Claude Rains in there. Round up the usual suspects. I am shocked that there's gambling in my establishment, sir. Here are your winnings.
Yes, and Peter Lorre.
Yes.
I grew up on Peter Lorre and all those great Roger Corman films. And he was also, well, I haven't seen it in years, but there's one called A Comedy of Errors with him and Vincent Price. They play a pair of undertakers who business is getting slow, so they figure they got to do something to get a little more business into the undertaking house. So you can, and it's a very, very dark comedy from the early 60s. It is brilliant.
I might have to look this up at some point later, a little bit later on.
I've done it again, haven't I?
You have done it again, haven't you? Just,
sorry.
I mean, it's like, Peter Lorre once said, Peter Lorre once said, "You despise me, don't you?" Well, if I gave you any thought, I probably would.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we love you, Rick.
Yeah.
Rick, breaking another precedent. Anyhow, I'm sorry, I'm getting off base here.
I told you we go off the rails. Here I am, folks.
I'm sorry. We were getting on
the derailer.
You're killing me. But here's another question for you. Aside from all the writing, aside from all the adventures you've had and the colleagues you've made and close friends that you've known over the course of these many years, when we move into a different stage of your life, I'm curious. Rising Tide Publications. How did that all start? How did that come about?
Well, originally, for my first couple of books, visual aid here, Freelance Words, a Freelance Words production. That's what I called my publishing outfit, because when I first became totally freelance, I wasn't real sure what I would be doing to write and bring income in, and I was looking at things like content writing, which is like basically articles for websites, things like that. But what I wanted to do was write books and short stories and comics mostly. And eventually I figured out how to do it and actually get something back from it. But I noticed along the way that I would talk to people as I was starting out full-time freelance, and they were overly generous with the encouragement and the information I needed. Mm-hmm. To rise and get up to the next level. Then around 2016, I started hearing like Bruce Wayne sitting in the study and watching the bat fly in. I believe in omens. And I was hearing a phrase that the late John F. Kennedy used to say during his administration, that a rising tide raises all ships. And I'd seen this in other forms of publishing, especially like back around 2010 or so. DC started something called the New 52, which was made basically a total reboot of the entire mainstream line. And finally, for the first time in years, DC had titles that were selling over 1 million units, which doesn't happen a lot, folks. Oh, wow. But the thing is also, as people were coming into the comic shops to buy these DC comics, they were like, "Oh, they still publish Spider-Man. Let me get that. Oh, wait a second. What's this book here? This looks interesting. Let's grab that." And so other companies were having a residual effect from DC's plan. And it was kind of like, DC rises, everyone rises with them. Now, and I started seeing a lot of this in business, and this John F. Kennedy quote kept popping up over and over. And I have tried to do the same thing myself. If anyone came to me seriously looking for advice, I'm more than happy to give it to them. Yeah. Everyone should be a Rick Bradley. And so I was doing this. I was releasing this book, and the original Skyman Battles the Master of Steam. And so I decided to rename the publishing company Rising Tide, based on that. And again, this book is another example of the rising tide. When you're kind of doing things unselfishly, it kind of comes back to you. You call it karma or whatever. I contacted Roy Thomas, who he was Stan Lee's right-hand guy during the Marvel Age of Comics. He's written things like Conan the Barbarian, long runs of the Avengers, a whole bunch of stuff. He co-created Wolverine, co-created the Punisher, a whole lot of different great characters, worked for a lot of companies, including DC. And I'd been working for him on some publications of his for about 10 years by that time. And I wrote him, and I was fully prepared to be told, "No, go away, Brian." But what I wrote him was, "Roy, here's the book. Here's a copy of the book, the manuscript. What would it take for me to get an introduction from you so that I could exploit your good name?" That's exactly how I put it. And he said, contact me in about 2 weeks. I'm finishing something up. I'll have your thing for you then.
Mm-hmm.
And I contacted him 2 weeks later, and he shot it right back to me. And it was so wonderful. I mean, I sat here. I was verklempt for about half an hour because he had written something. In fact, I was really knocked out by it. In Roy's thing, he said, if pulp magazines ever make a comeback, Morris's Skyman may become the new Doc Savage.
Ooh. Ooh.
Blame me for getting choked up.
Jeez.
Yeah, and
Bold statement.
I know, and now I got to live up to the thing. But anyway,
no pressure on your end of the fence.
Oh no, I'm emptying the hail pail constantly. But anyway, but anyway, I started calling my operations Rising Tide.
Sure.
Because we pass on the blessings when we get them, and I've attracted people that I've name dropped furiously during the last 50 minutes, including yourself, who do a great job of putting others first, and hopefully, and I know a lot of our circle are doing that and seeing themselves rise, and it makes me happy, to have that going, and knowing that maybe I did like some small part to make it happen. So that's my story.
Don't worry, your check's in the mail.
Thank you, I appreciate that. For you, I'll take a check. Anyone else's PayPal. So
exactly, yeah, or Venmo for that matter, because we all know people like to use their different apps on their respective devices. Let's put it where it is.
That's right.
But my goodness, that's amazing. So Rising Tide publication comes about, and all of a sudden I'm hearing something about Rising Tide taking a bit of an evolution, if you will, and it's called the Rising Tide Broadcasting Network or Rising Tide Broadcast Network. How did that start?
Okay, that's that's kind of funny because I'd always toyed with the idea, in my moments of what I felt were hubris, that I'm doing all this broadcasting because, I had just come off when the lockdowns began in 2020. I was broadcasting 7 days a week, plus doing guest shots on other shows, and I did it for about 2.5 months before it started wearing me down, and things were starting to open up by then. So I kind of cut back from about 10 hours or about 10 different appearances per week down to a regular 3, or 4 rather. Then I added the 5th show because somebody said I'm doing too much broadcasting and it could kill me. So anyway, I'm not taking this talk from you young pups, I tell you. But anyway, but no, what happened was my dear friend Joe Dog McKeel, who runs Stupid O'Clock Thursdays at 9 Eastern, tonight at 11. Be sure to watch it on Stupid O'Clock. Yeah. Hashtag always promote your friends too. But anyway, no, Joe Dog's a great guy, and he said he was starting up a show, and he asked if I could if he could list himself as part of my network. And I thought, what the heck? I said, tell everybody you're part of the Rising Tide Broadcasting Network. And he started doing that. And then like Ted Davies, who had his own stuff going, he's like, Brian, can I start saying that too? Sure, why not? And it's not like we have opened the door for everybody. I mean, hanging with Web Show Network, and I'm not saying this to wax your car or Garrett's, but this is a great organization, watching you guys work together as you do. And we also get a lot of love from Willow Schuyler every day.
Oh, my goodness.
She is amazing. She never
stops. She promotes everyone 24/7. She's trying to put all of us other podcasters and broadcasters, respectively. She's putting us to shame.
I know. And then she's got her own great show, Willow's Pillow Talk. Check your listings for times and dates. But,
yes.
She's good. She's really good. She's really developing.
She's too good. She's too good. That is my biggest issue with her. I'm thinking to myself, Willow, you're my sister from Canada, but at the same time, I'm thinking, are you trying to take all the jobs? I mean, are you trying to put me out of work? I mean, goodness gracious, woman, you just don't know when to quit, do you? Yeah, it's just.
I know.
But Willow, we love you all the same, so it's just.
We do.
As we've stated a few times on this show before, and we've said it on other shows as well, rising tide raises all ships. So Willow, you know how to raise the tide and raise all ships anyway, so why not?
Exactly. And it's just one of the things. I just started attracting other people who wanted to do programming and needed encouragement. Plus, we've been helping each other lift up our YouTube numbers too. and it has worked pretty much. And we also do people who, do some stuff for people outside of our network too, whose mission we appreciate. So, it's a very loose assemblage of people, but we do have a common goal, and we do have like a set of standards. If anyone who probably is at least mostly technical, because you see a lot of broadcasters who are like broadcasting with their phones in their laps with the light behind them, and that stuff drives me nuts. Because I used to work in television.
There you go. The broadcasting brain starting to come in.
Yeah, I used to work at a local. One of my first jobs in life was at a local cable TV station, and then I worked for public broadcasting for 3 years. And I got on as a volunteer. I was basically their fan shill for Doctor Who. Go figure, right?
Says the guy who wears a fez every day he walks out the door, or if he's inside of the comfort of his own home with the love of his life.
I know. Sometimes I'm not going off the rails there. Anyway, this is a family show. But anyway, no, I do wear a bow tie too and a smile. But no, if anyone drags down the curve, it's me, because there are some days that the StreamYard, the platform we're broadcasting on, I have a lot of love for, but there are some days where I'm just not into the game. I just don't have my head straight yet. And, I haven't psyched myself up properly. And it's like, I tell people, it's like somebody said, there's the chair, sit down, you're on in 3, 2, 1, take it, and I'm supposed to figure it out from there. But no, I love broadcasting. I love the contact that we have with people. And, that's how you and I met.
I either caught it from our friends at HWS Web TV, or maybe it was someone named Willow. She plugged Never Mind the Furthermore, and I'm thinking, what is that? I'm just curious. I know it's on every other day at 10 in the morning, which is normally when I either get up or I'm in the process of growing out of bed. I got to get up and grab that shower, get myself energized and ready to go. But you know what? I wake up and I turn on the show, and I'm thinking, what is the show about? And you kept saying it's all about plug yourself, and I'm thinking, well, we're nerd culture, so I'm just going to plug that. So I'm going to plug the podcast. I'm going to plug the YouTube channel. I'm going to plug, hey, tune into the next episode of so-and-so because my guest this week is going to be so-and-so. And you're like, well, let's put that on the screen because I'm going to plug that right now. And I'm thinking, you didn't have to do that, but you did it. And people like Cindy Kep, who's another fabulous person in her own right. And she's a great writer too, by the way.
She is. Seriously.
She knows how to plug like nobody's business. So Willow, I hate to say this, but I think you have some competition on your hands in the form of Cindy Kep. So
it's amazing. CKOEPP.com. Check out her website. She also currently is in the
last couple
in Kickstarter. I was going to mention Animal Eye.
Animal Eye, baby. Woo!
And she is fully funded, but now she is trying to get about another 400, I think it is, which is possible in the last couple of days. Now, I think this is amazing. She is going to have the first issue relettered and translated for half a dozen different foreign markets. How cool is that? And it's an all ages comic book. It is well done. I've read it. I actually read it. I was helping.
Nice.
I was helping Cindy. She came to me, and I was one of her consultants on how to write a comic book script.
Brilliant.
So
that's brilliant, Brian.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you. And in fact, what was it? She was using a book that actually tells you how to write a comic book script. It includes four different samples of scripting in there. # keep promoting.
Where have I seen that cover before?
Probably incessantly on my show. Plus, we run a trailer for it. But no, I'm very proud of this book. This started out originally as a Kickstarter reward. And it was supposed to be like a brief discussion on how to break into comics. I don't do brief. And one short story. I wound up writing like 3 short stories for this thing, and including 4 different scripts that are in production. And it's based on a real life haunted cemetery in the Southwest Chicago suburbs.
Ooh.
And I've been there twice, and the last time I tell people I don't disbelieve as far as the supernatural goes. I could have very well come back a believer after what happened to me up there. I experienced, and this goes along with the legends of the cemetery, which a number of which have been discovered by journalists, not just weekend Ghostbusters like me, but yeah, I experienced problems with my electronics In fact, my phone is still acting up, and it's been a year and a half since I've been there.
Oh my!
And it didn't act up before I went there, and also I experienced time slip. I was walking across the cemetery grounds with a friend of mine, and we're having a conversation. Then I turned to look at him; he's gone, and I'm looking around. I don't see him anywhere, and I thought, well, maybe he just wandered off. That's the sort of thing he might do. And so I kept on walking, and then I looked and I hear his voice, and I turn, and he's right by my side again, like he's Batman. And he's like, "Where did you go?" I'm like, No. Where did you go? And I just tell people it's a good thing I remember I was wearing dark slacks at the time. Because I probably would have I was very close to having an involuntary reaction to this sort of thing. Yeah.
Wow. So with these experiences, I guess it's fair to say Fox Mulder, Dana Scully, they'd be proud of you to say the truth is out there.
The truth is out there, and it's in Bachelor's Grove in Midlothian, Illinois. And yeah, I'm going back one day. We're going to keep seeing what other terrible things will happen to me there.
Goodness gracious, man, spooky, kooky stuff. But anyhow, so how many shows are currently airing on the Rising Tide Broadcasting Network, and what are your plans for that moving forward?
Okay, we have at least one show every day now, and let's see, there's Nevermind the Furthermore, TED Talks on Tuesday mornings with Ted Davies at 10 a.m. All times are Eastern. You figure out where you live.
Check your local listings.
Check your local listings. Consult TV Guide. We're not in there though. Anyway,
no, we're not. But I remember that like it were yesterday. Heck, I remember when TV Guide had their own TV Guide network when you had the thing scrolling up and up and up and up. I missed those. I miss those days.
I do too. Of course, I don't watch TV much anymore, so this is why I get so much done. But okay, so we have Nevermind the Furthermore with me. Watch anyway. TED Talks. He's always talking to somebody interesting. 10 o'clock Tuesday morning. Then I'm on again with Clever Tile Pending, where we talk to creatives about creativity and the business behind it. Wednesday there's me again, the same show. Nevermind the Furthermore. Then Thursdays it's TED Talks Timepieces, because Ted Davies is also a collector of wristwatches,
which is fascinating stuff.
It really, it may sound dry, but he manages to make it sound fascinating. He's really wonderful. And then once a month, Ted and Carl Witzman have a show about cigar appreciation. And I'm not a smoker. And keep in mind, I'm not a smoker, but I've learned so much about fine tobacco on that show. And this is stuff, especially if you're a writer, you soak it in because you never know when it's going to be useful later. Then at 7 p.m. is Comic Book Spectrum, where I'm on again. You can't get away from me, people.
Yeah, no one can get away from BKM, aka Brian K. Morris. Try to keep up with the acronyms.
Exactly. I'm like the Terminator of amateur broadcasting.
I'll be back. Yeah,
I'll be back and back and back.
And then I believe you got another show called Creative as Hale.
No, that's Amy Hale. Amy and John Hale, or as we like to call him, Mr. Amy Hale. And she also interviews a lot of great actors and writers. Great show. She's terrific. And then following that is Stupid O'Clock with Joe Dog McKeel, which also airs on Saturdays at 11 p.m. He describes it as, the conversations you have with your friends after hours at a convention, and how it starts in one place and then it changes and you break into a sweat trying to figure out the progression of how the conversation has changed. It's like that, but these guys are incredibly funny, incredibly insightful. So we're well over one hand with that. And then Friday morning is me again at 10 o'clock. And then after that, you're pretty much free of me. Then at 6 p.m. is Drinking with the Davies with Ted and his wife, Christine, who I'm saying is the breakout star of the network. She is fantastic. And again, it's about adult beverages and brewing them at home, maybe making them a little healthier for you using natural ingredients.
That's fair.
And she and Ted started out the show making their own limoncello.
Who'd have thunk?
Yeah, and aging it and finally preparing it for use. It was really interesting. And then after that is the Historical Fencing Guild with Nick Tockard, where he teaches people combat. And if you're into like martial arts and bladed weaponry, I tease him that it's a show that teaches you how to kill people safely.
I think you've mentioned that once or twice on your programming.
Yeah, and even Nick's starting to say it now. So my job here is done. And then And then Saturday is, of course, another Stupid O'Clock at 11 p.m. And then we round out the week with Heather Ellen with Chaos Comics and Sass. And it's a show very much like Nevermind the Furthermore.
Plug.
Bring out, as Eric Hodgson says, bring out the power strip. We've got the plugs.
Yes.
But she's absolutely wonderful. She is
Quite
a total
so.
delight. And so, yeah, we've got stuff. And we've got a couple people we're talking to. Somebody is interested in bringing another comic book show on board.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I like comic books, man.
Yeah. And this guy knows his stuff. He's a longtime friend and a historian on comics.
Ooh,
He really knows his stuff.
keep everyone updated on the developments of your potentially new and upcoming stars.
Promise. And we also have another lady who is running she's just starting in broadcasting now.
Really?
And she's kind of getting her feet wet, but she's got a really wonderful way about her. She's an artist, and we're kind of bringing her along, and hopefully have both of them on board in the next couple of months. So so the long range goal is just basically providing positive and I when I say uplifting, I mean, it's not like we're going to have the heavenly choir singing behind
Like spiritual,
any of us.
yeah.
It's nothing, it is spiritual, but not religious, let's say.
Right, got it,
Because we
yeah.
don't talk about religion. We try not to talk
Right.
about religion. We don't talk about politics on there, except
Yeah.
when I slip and I get angry. But anyway,
Different sides of another fence.
yeah, I'm allowed to break the rules, but because I help make them. But anyway, no, a lot of the shows, we want you feeling good. We want you feeling like you can do this too,
Oh,
because
yeah.
you can. That's one thing I learned years ago. If you say you can do it, you're right. If you say you can't do it, you're right. I'd rather say I can do it, and you can too.
I mean, I learned this in broadcasting school. If it is to be, it is up to me. If you act enthusiastic, you will be enthusiastic. Those are two of the
Exactly.
biggest things I learned when I walked into the door, and I kept them in my mind when I walked out the door.
Yeah. And why do you think I drink so much coffee? I have artificial enthusiasm.
Honestly, you do like 3, 4, 5 shows a week, and I'm thinking to myself, how many cups of coffee does this guy have to drink every single freaking day of his life to keep up with all the madness?
I choose to drink. I actually love coffee. I really do. And if anybody has a coffee business out there, I would love to take you on as a
Go ahead and
sponsor.
plug it in the comments,
Yeah,
because I want to give
seriously.
Brian some heads up here if I
Yeah,
can.
please. But no, I years ago, I went to a lecture by a coffee taster.
No
A professional coffee. Yeah, seriously.
kidding. Get out of here.
It was fascinating about how like when you buy a coffee, it is not
Yes.
just from one plantation. It is from several, perhaps,
Oh,
because they're
yes.
going for a flavor profile, and that,
Ooh,
like
yeah.
wines, you can some really good coffee, you can taste the different flavor levels in it.
That's true.
And if you get good enough, you can even tell where the primary flavor bean is from, like whether it is from Sumatra or Ethiopia or Kenya, or maybe just
Interesting.
or maybe just someplace around the equator, because that's the only place with enough heat and constant heat to grow a coffee tree.
It's very true. I mean, on the flip side of that, my family likes to eat coffee ice cream from Haagen-Dazs. Hashtag not a sponsor yet, but hey,
Yeah.
there you go. There's something that my family does. But yeah, no, in all seriousness though, good. We wish you nothing but the best with Rising Tide Publications,
Thank you
Rising
so
Tide
much.
Broadcasting Network, because you guys got a wonderful team of people over there, and you've already stated that you're in the process of making it grow even more so. So congrats on that. Once again, we're talking with Brian K. Morris here, independent writer, publisher, and the Mr. Rogers of the interwebs, as I like to refer to him as. He just doesn't have the red cardigan or the neighborhood trolley in his possession, but the spirit of Fred Rogers should live in all of us, I would think so, because we all want to live in a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and we want to make new friends and have new neighbors. So I got no qualms about that. So Brian, if you don't mind me asking, flipping the script a little bit, if you don't mind.
No.
Going back, maybe something you've heard recently or something you may have heard in the past, I'm not sure. What's the worst pickup line you've ever heard or even dished out back in your youth?
Oh. Well, I can't say I used any bad pickup lines because I spent a number of years not dating. I believe very few people believe it, except for some creatives. I was very shy for a very long time.
You get it.
I know I'm overcompensating for it now.
Good
But
Lord.
but yeah, a lot of very creative people are at heart very shy. But we put on kind of a persona, which I call me but not me, that has all the positive qualities,
Sure, yeah.
and none and as few of the detrimental ones. But no, for a number of years I was I was working in a comic shop and very
Ooh.
invested in it. And I
Yeah.
just didn't date at the time. And then I started dating one of the customers, and I kind of hit it off, and it never went anywhere. But I thought, I like this dating thing. I'm going to have to try it again. So I just kind of stepped out myself. But the worst thing, okay, I hate to pick on this person, and I apologize in advance, but he's one of my listeners. We had a talk with him on the air about it. Like, he was asking this one girl and said, I've asked her 29 times to go out with me, and she keeps saying no. What should I do? And we're all like, give up. There's a trend emerging here. And then he kept talking about, well, I want to take her to my room in the basement, and she's not really coming with me. And we're like,
No, that's not
oh,
what you say.
no,
That's not how the Force works.
no. You save that for at least the third date before saying, I'm taking you down to my dungeon. But
Either
no,
that, or you could say, let me take you down to my basement and show you my comic book collection. Because then if you unlock the nerdy part of the person, that'll help.
now that's how my wife Cookie and I, that was our first date, in fact.
Get out of here.
Okay, see ya. No,
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 I'm kidding.
no,
I'm kidding.
no.
I'm curious now. Just a quick sidebar before I move on to question number 2 in this
Okay.
crazy series
Yeah, we're
of
just getting to number 2, Brian.
nut job
Stop
question
talking.
or crazy go-lucky questions. Yeah, what was the first date? You said it was comic book related?
Yes, you see, we met through a mutual friend. We met actually at her wedding, and we were gamers. We played a superhero version of Dungeons and Dragons called Champions.
Wow.
And she was seeing somebody else. I was seeing somebody else, but we both broke up with our others.
Right.
But we were still friends, and she would come over from southern Indiana. I was living at the time in East Central Illinois, so this is like a 4-hour trip.
Oh, wow.
And so she would drive up like every other week when we had the run.
Jeez.
And I was still picking up comic books. I was working for PBS at that time, but I would get my comic books, get some fast food, then drive over, and we'd spend the evening playing superhero stuff.
Nice.
Well, then Cookie, my wife, her real name is Cookie. We just nicknamed her Carol. She would borrow my comics, and then my friend would return them at the end of the weekend when Cookie went back to Indiana. Well, then Christmas of 1990, she said, I'm going to be over a long weekend. Could I borrow a bunch of books from you, comic books, to tide me over, and then our friend can give them back to you on Monday? I said, yeah, sure. Come on over to my apartment. Which, you know, it's a lot better than come over to my dungeon, my basement, my magic room. But anyway, she came over, and originally it was just going to be like, here's your books. Okay, you know, check out books what you want, and see you. Have a nice day. And see you tonight.
Yeah.
Well, we stayed there and we talked for probably about 3 or 4 hours.
Wow.
And then I'm like, you hungry? And she's like, yeah, I'm hungry. Let's go to Campus Town, University of Illinois. Let's get some food. And so we had lunch, and then we hung out and we talked there for a long time. And then my mother was in the hospital at the time. Now this is where it gets cheaty here. I said, I've got to go visit my mom in the hospital. And she goes, well, I'll go with you. I'd like to meet her. I'm like, oh, okay, fine. My mother's an amazing woman. Very creative. She was going to, until she got married, she was planning to be a clothing designer.
Oh, clothing. Okay.
And she could draw. She's the one who taught me how to draw.
Sure.
And she's also a really terrific writer. I'm going to be publishing some of her stuff eventually. But anyway, we went and visited my mom. Now, Cookie is also a terrific cook and a baker. And she had made some potato bread, fresh potato bread. And Mom, of course, was like, I don't want to eat this hospital crap. And I said, well, I'll run out and get us all something to eat. And Cookie goes, hey, wait, I've got some potato bread. You want some? So she bribed my mother. Totally unfair. And so I'm eating Mom's lunch, and those two are eating potato bread. And I'm like, okay, this is fine. And then Cookie and I went, just hung out till the end of the day. We had dinner together, and then we spent, the night playing the game. And, so basically a chance meeting turned into like a 15-hour date, and we just started seeing each other, and it just, took off from there. But the thing is, every time I went to visit my mom after that, it'd be like, Mom, how you doing? She's like, I'm fine. Have you talked to Cookie today? I'm like, no. Why? And she goes, "Go home and talk to Cookie." I'm like,
pick up the
Mom,
phone and call her.
yeah, it's like, and I'm like, Mom, I'm here. You're not feeling well. I'm here to provide support. And she goes, fine, you visited me. Go home and call Cookie. And so we would talk for 3 hours. It's not like we were falling for each other or anything. So, but anyway, like I told Ryan at the start of the show, in a couple of weeks, in less than 2 weeks, we're going to be celebrating our 30th wedding anniversary together. Thank you. Pray for Cookie. Hashtag pray for Cookie.
Yeah. That is, oh my gosh, that is a great story. I really, on behalf of myself and the millions of people who are watching, if not listening to this right now in the comfort of their own homes or their offices, wherever you are on the weekends, thank you for sharing that, because that is just,
thank you.
If I ever get the chance to meet your friends and your family out there in your neck of the woods, I would just,
we'll make it happen.
I would love to just say hi to everybody. That'd be great.
We'd love to have you out here. We got to get you out here.
Please. I want to do some traveling once Earth reopens a lot more and things are a bit safer. Everyone's cool, calm, collected. My anxiety disorder doesn't overtake my want and need to travel and to do other things, because anxiety is not something you just get over. You deal with it for your entire life. But there are ways to cope with it. There are strategies. So just keep that in mind if you're open to it, because just like Ian Malcolm likes to tell us, I'm just saying that life finds a way.
Exactly.
So Brian, speaking of food and maybe some other stuff, what's something weird that you recommend everyone tries at least once?
As far as food goes?
Well, it could be anything, just in general terms.
Okay. Well, one, your dream.
There you go.
Definitely follow your dream. Secondly, I recommend grilled cheese with a very thin coating of jelly on the inside. This week, much to the horror of my cardiologist, I've been eating grilled cheese sandwiches, sharp cheddar with a very, very thin layer of apple jelly inside. That way you have the sweet and the salty together with that wonderful crisp crunch of the outside of the bread. And this week I've been using Hawaiian bread, so it comes with a certain sweetness itself, and it's good stuff. So definitely do your dream. Give that a shot. You never know, because I believe with enough hard work and constant re-education, because everything changes. And even if you're just doing it for fun and not professionally, do it. Just get started. Because so many people talk a good game about, oh yeah, I want to be a novelist. Oh yeah, I want to be a musician. Yeah, I want to be an actor, and they don't take even step one to get closer to achieving that. And how many great books, how many great pieces of art or music or acting have we not seen because somebody decided the couch was a lot more friendly than the pain of rejection and such. And I have to say goodbye to my honey because she's leaving for work. Hold on a second here.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, we will not put you. We'll not put. Okay, here we go. Okay, yeah, we've been married 30 years.
There you go.
Okay. And show your hand, honey. Everybody.
There it is. Thank you.
There we go.
Awesome. Great. Have a wonderful day, by the way.
She said, Ryan says, have a wonderful day. And I'll add to that. I love you, honey. I hope you are too. Mwah.
There you go. A quick peek behind the curtain of our guest's personal life.
That's right.
But it's all well and good here. Now, if you were reincarnated as a famous landmark, Brian, what would you be?
Wow.
Famous landmark. What do you got?
Probably the first indoor flush toilet. Probably with my luck, but I don't know. I have a fondness for the Washington Monument.
Oh, there you go.
Because I used to live out in that area when I was in my early teens, and of course, this is a long time ago. This is a long time ago, like around 1970, and my father and I went up to the top of it. Mm-hmm. Now that thing's like a mile high or so. It's a big, it's a big thing.
It's quite tall, if you know what I mean.
Exceedingly tall, but at the time we were riding in this elevator.
Oh yes,
there's about a dozen of us because my dad said we are not walking up that thing. I'm not gonna have I'm not gonna have a stroke halfway up. But anyway, we're riding this thing, and once the elevator starts, it gives you there was a tape recorded voice that was giving us the history and little sciencey things about the monument. and I swear this is true. This is the sort of thing that you only would see in a sitcom, but I promise this is true. Where there's a dozen of us riding up in this car, and the voice goes, "Well, of course you may feel a little swaying when you're at the pinnacle of the Washington Monument. This is nothing to be concerned with, as the to improve the stability, it actually must sway because of the winds at that height. But don't worry, you be rest assured that you are safe and nothing could go
Wrong.
And we're all like,
is this the Tower of Terror come to life?
yeah, it's like the Disney ride from hell we're about to embark on here, and we're nowhere near the top when this thing is happening, and we're like, oh dear God, we're all gonna die up there if we make it up there. So no, we got up there without incident, but needless to say, we walked back down.
Oh, you did take the stairs.
One of us, we took the steps.
You took the steps. So if you were reincarnated as a famous landmark, you would potentially want to be the Washington Monument at some point?
Yes, and I do want that tape recording that slows down part way up there because it does get your adrenaline going. So it's
great. Way to give me a
story.
Way to give me a heart attack when I'm going down to that area of DC. But I'm just throwing it out there.
I know, but actually it's a beautiful place.
It's a nice area.
Yeah, especially when the cherry blossoms come out, and everything smells like cherry blossoms.
There you go. Then you got all the museums and the Smithsonian, the Air and Space Museum. Anybody?
Yeah.
Hello. That's kind of a big deal that you should visit.
Yeah, we got to go through the FBI building once too.
Oh, really? I actually went through Have you been to the International Spy Museum?
No, I haven't. They
had the James
bucket
Bond
list
exhibit
stuff
that year. I was there, and all the Bond cars and the gadgets. And I'm thinking to myself, as someone who grew up watching the Pierce Brosnan era, sorry, I'm a bit young.
That's okay.
I watched the Pierce Brosnan, Daniel Craig era, and to see all the stuff from their movies, respectively, and then to see the Sean Connery, of course, because OG, you got to respect the OG, Mr. Connery.
Yeah.
So you see the BMW Aston Martin. I'm thinking, is anyone going to notice if I just drive off on this thing?
Yeah,
because I really want this car because it's a really good looking car and I would like to drive in it one day, but I don't know. A man can dream, can he?
Yeah, and especially if you get like the oil slick ejector, I think that would be useful too. And I've had a few days where that ejector seat would be.
If you get annoyed with somebody, ejector seat? You're joking. I never joke about my work, 007. Anyway, sorry, I could go all day on 007 trivia for you. But anyway. We do have some questions. We do have some comments that I want to get to here in the chat because you people have been lovely this entire time, and we want to give you a shout out. So Spidey Fan 62 asks a question. He says, "You talked about the Shadow earlier. I'm interested in the character. Do you have any recommendations for the character? I know of the Garth Ennis run. Is it any good?"
Yes, it is. Garth Ennis, actually, I should have mentioned him. He's also one of my favorite writers, too. He's got a great way of capturing, of doing interesting plots while still maintaining the integrity of the original character. There are also some from Dynamite Entertainment that were written by Chris Roberson that are dead on. Chris Roberson's a really underrated writer. And all of his are good. And there's also one that was like a team up with other pulp characters, again from Dynamite Entertainment, written by Michael Uslan. That name should be familiar. He is the executive producer of the Batman films.
Ooh.
I got to meet him when he was still a college professor at Indiana University. He had created the America's very first comic book history course. And he was at a show in Indianapolis with it was run by Bob Layton. Yes, Brian name drops, but so what? Anyway, the Dynamite Entertainment run is excellent. There are some that are worth reading simply because they are a curiosity. Howard Chaykin did a limited run Shadow book for DC back in the 80s, I believe it was. That was really, really good. Trying to think who else, but yeah, mostly the Dynamite Entertainment ones have been really solid. So I would start with those. And here's a little tip. I do ask that everyone support your local comic book shop, but I also believe that everyone should have a driver's license, a voting permit, and a library card. And if you have a library card, there is a website that your library supports called hoopla.com. And a lot of those Shadow books are on there. If you enjoy what I do is if I enjoy the books when I read them on there, I order them through my comic shop. Just saying. So that way you can read them and you can support your comic shop and get the best of what's out there. But that's an excellent question, Spidey Van 62. Thank you for asking that. And I dig the Shadow too. Now, like I said, there are some versions that are. There was one by Andrew Helfer and Kyle Baker back in the 80s, again, called The Shadow Strikes. It started out very, very true to it, and then it started getting really weird towards the last half year or so. It's still worth reading. It's still very well done. And then Archie Comics, of all things, did their own version of The Shadow, and it was very loosely based on the radio show, which, aficionados know is, there's the pulp version, and then there's the radio version. So, the radio fans will ask you, who's Kent Allard? That sort of thing. So, but anyway, just some recommendations. Now, those Archies have never been reprinted. I will say that. But they actually did them as a superhero for about 5 or 6 issues. But they were written by Jerry Siegel, the co-creator of Superman. So they're kind of quirky, kind of camp. But it'll make you appreciate the Howard Chaykin stuff a lot more.
There you go. And the ones that I've read, I have 3 trades in my collection. I have The Shadow, The Death of Margaret Lane, great standalone book. I have The Shadow, The Last Illusion. That's a good one. And then the third one is okay, not quite as good as the other 2, but it's still, I think it's still kind of worth checking out. It's called The Shadow Now, which is a bit more present day.
Oh, yeah. I did read that.
On the Shadow.
That wasn't bad.
It's okay, but it's kind of hard to see everything. There's a lot of dark panels and artwork. I'm thinking to myself, can anyone see anything on this page? What's going on?
Yeah, and I think Matt Wagner wrote a couple too that are. Yeah. I love Matt Wagner's work.
There's that too. So there you go, Spidey fan. There's a gajillion recommendations. Now he brings up something else, and I'm trying to remember if this is correct or not. Spidey fan 62 says, "You mentioning JMS just reminded me of his Spider-Man run. I love how his Spider-Man needs Mary Jane to be the Spider-Man character. He's very human. His Spider-Man in his early 30s, which makes sense."
Yeah, because he's, by the time we see him now, if you follow him from his early 60s appearances, I mean, we've seen him graduate from high school. He's gone to graduate school. He's, lost one girlfriend to death. He's had quite the career. It makes perfect sense that he's in his early 30s by now. And I think the best thing Marvel Comics can do is just simply ignore any references to his age, and we can fill it in from there. So... But yeah, I agree. And I have to say also, I agree, JMS wrote some of the most incredible Spider-Man stories ever. And I put him up there with Stan Lee and Jerry Conway and such. But yeah, he wrote some, and the 9/11 tribute he did still tugs at me. It really does. I'd had some issues with the thing about Gwen and Norman Osborn. I didn't think that was terrific. And I checked out of buying Spider-Man regularly after One More Day. Because as a married guy, it kind of annoyed me. And I was seeing a trend at Marvel and in comics in general at the time. That was one thing annoyed me about the New 52 also. The idea that you couldn't do good stories about a married superhero. And yet there were so many there's a generation, maybe bordering on 2, that knows that Superman has been Superman's married to Lois Lane.
It was destiny.
It was destiny. They're meant to be together.
I've read stories where they've either been married or they're just starting out. Like, for example, an origin story that I read was really good. Superman Birthright, Mark Waid. I mean,
super story,
which is a good one. And then something I need to read. I haven't done it yet, and I know this is probably take away some of my Superman cred, but I need to read All Star Superman. I haven't read it yet. I know it's one of the greats, but I need to sit down and read it one of these days.
Yeah, and I don't watch most of the DC animated stuff.
There are some good ones, though.
There are some excellent ones, but I like the original ones because most of the time I'm sitting here watching this and I could be enjoying it, but I'm in the back of my mind, I just paid twice for the same story. Now, the All-Star Superman with the script by the late Dwayne McDuffie is excellent, but the only problem I have with it is it points out that there's 6 issues that didn't get included in that the movie flows just fine without them. But it's awesome. It is very true to the comic. But yeah, I definitely recommend All-Star Superman. In fact, I really, I'm not a huge Grant Morrison groupie kind of. Everything he writes is gold. But his runs on Action Comics, on All-Star Superman, and on Batman have been superb. superb because even when he falls in love with his wild concepts and the story goes completely off the rails, he understands the characters at their core and what makes them work. You know, very much in the same way that Alan Moore did back in the 80s when he was working for mainstream.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. That's true. And I know before I move on to the next comment / question from our great audience.
Yeah. Thank you, audience.
And I take that this was part of the New 52. Was Flashpoint part of the New 52?
Yes, that was the prelude to the New 52.
That was one of the first graphic novels I read when I started becoming a comic books fan. I really liked that. I really liked the Jeff Johns Flashpoint. Oh my goodness. Like, what if this happened? And I'm thinking to myself, this would make a great movie. And then a few years later, they adapted the book, made an animated film. Yeah. I liked it, but at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, 75 minutes? I want more.
Yeah, that's a very broad story. That is a very ambitious story. As would have been All-Star Superman. Yeah, seriously, make it a two-parter. Make it a multi-parter.
Make it a 2-hour movie if you want. If it's animated, you have the time.
Sure, yeah, you would think, especially if you're going direct to market.
Well, yeah, there's that.
You know,
too.
it's not like you're putting it in a movie theater and you have to be mindful of how many showings you can do a day. Yeah, you can put it out on DVD, keep it in print forever, and and you're righteous. Although then again, I am kind of notorious in that I am not a fan of The Killing Joke by Alan Moore and Brian Boland. The art is beautiful. The last page ruined the whole story for me. And DC managed to do an animated film that is actually worse than the original.
Specifically because of the prelude with Batgirl.
Ding! We have a winner.
Thank you. Yeah, that's just, I'm sorry. That's another story for another show. But I will say though, our good friend Terry MacGyver from Ireland. Terry says, afternoon, nevermore. Oh, wait a minute. Wrong show. Afternoon quotations. Is that the name of my fans now? The Quotations? Terry, Quotations. Is that the name?
It sounds like a Motown group. Ryan and the Quotations. I like this.
I might have to dig into that. I'm sorry. But then some of these comments are more in reference to what we were talking about earlier, known as the great film Casablanca. Amanda says Hollywood has just run out of some good ideas of their own, unfortunately. And then Brian Wensloff counters that by saying, no, remake everything. It doesn't take away from the original. If it's good, then you have a newer great film / show. And if it's bad, you still have the original to go back to. Yes, that's true, Brian. But if anyone mentions even a hint of remaking or rebooting Casablanca or other films that I take quite seriously, you got another thing coming.
We are at war, seriously. But Brian, I that's a very good perspective. I do like that perspective. And there have been some films, I think, that like Total Recall. I like the sequel a lot, and I still love the original.
You mean the reboot?
The reboot, rather. Yeah, the reboot, whatever you want to call it.
Are you talking about the reboot with Colin Farrell and Kate Beckinsale and Jessica Biel? Which, by the way, the best thing of that movie for me was the scene in the trailer where you see Jessica Biel fighting Kate Beckinsale, a.k.a. Celine from Underworld, fighting... what's her name? Abigail from I know a movie that no one wants to talk about, Blade Trinity. But it's as close as an action hero that Jessica Biel got to at that point. So you take those two, you slap them together in a movie, and I'm thinking, this movie's actually going to be good. And then I walked out of the theater thinking, that was fine, but the original is still much better. Because especially when someone looks you dead in the eye and says, in 30 seconds, you'll be dead, and I'll blow this place up and be home in time for cornflakes.
Yes, great. I mean, the original is a wonderful movie.
You need to get to Mars.
Flawless, pretty close to flawless as far as
See you at the party, Richter.
Yeah,
on, dude.
It was a great story. And I agree. I like the Colin Farrell version, but I have seen too many attempts at remakes. Like back in the 80s, there was a TV series with David Soul from Starsky and Hutch and Here Come the Brides, where he played the Bogart role in Casablanca.
What?
Yeah, I'm serious.
No one can hold a candle to Bogey and Ingrid Bergman when it comes to that, but my gosh.
You know that, and I know that. Now, fortunately, David Soul did not try to imitate Bogart, but it was just like a pale imitation. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen American TV try to reboot Faulty Towers.
And
they've had some valiant attempts at it, and even there's just like some spark where you can take something like Till Death Do Us Part in Britain and turn it into All in the Family, or Steptoe and Son and turn it into Sanford and Son. But and as much as I adore the writing of Stephen Moffat, he had it lasted 4 seasons in Great Britain called Coupling. It was loosely based on his own romantic life, and it's hilarious. The British show is is incredible. The American show, even though it had Rena Sofer and I'm blanking his name, Colin, he was in Eureka.
Oh, you mean Colin Ferguson?
Colin Ferguson, thank you. He's now the Maytag repairman. But
Yes,
anyway,
he is.
he's good. But
Quite
anyway,
well, I might add.
yeah, but they had these two great actors on it, and they even used pretty much 95% of the original British script, and the pilot is, to me, virtually unwatchable. The timing and everything. I think it's the timing where the American versions you have those pauses for the laugh track. And even the laugh track sounds like it's doing it at gunpoint.
Yeah, the whole thing is like a little bit cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But you know what? We keep talking about these wonderful films here. A gentleman by the name of Clyde Hall chimes in. Do you choke up when you hear La Marseillaise plays in Casablanca 2? Seeing those actors, many who first hand the rising thread of fascism, tearing up slabs in the floor, or stabs me in the heart, every single time, Clyde Hall.
Clyde Hall, I agree. And Clyde is my one of my co-stars on Comic Book Spectrum on Thursday nights at 7 p.m.
Hey,
Plug
away, my young man.
I will, my friend. I will. Thank you. But no, seriously, I do. There are some moments that never stop affecting me in comics or in books or in films. And yeah, that's one of them, Clyde, for sure.
I got to say, though, the end of the film where, spoilers for a film that's, 60, 70, 80 years old, when he has to let her go. At the end, and they don't come together like they were originally, because I thought they were going to end up in the end. Like, okay, he can get on the plane, he can have his freedom, he can get away from the authorities, but I want you to stay with me because you still care about me. Let's make this work. Because no, you got to go. No, I don't want to. We'll always have parents. Here's looking at you, kid. I mean, my gosh. I'm thinking to myself, you're letting Ingrid go? Are you mad?
And that shows how much he loved her.
Oh, I'm telling you, like, it may not hurt you, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday. It's so I can go all day on this movie.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But Grant Langford chimes in. He says, I remember as a kid when Peter Lorre would be on Looney Tunes and I would be so confused. I'm thinking to myself, who is this guy?
He was on everything. I mean, he was an actor's actor. I mean, he'd do movies, he'd do television, he'd do cartoons. If you had a job, he was there, and it could be like a B movie, like a Roger Corman, in which case he was amazing, or you'd have him in an A film like Casablanca, or just a walk on a TV show. But he gave everything his all. He's kind of like Burgess Meredith in that regard. Well, really, really underrated actor. Because here's Burgess Meredith could do the Penguin, on one year. The next year he's telling Rocky Balboa how to fight. And one of my favorite,
my gosh,
and also the classic Twilight Zone episode with him on there, where he plays a guy who's an avid reader, and he finds in the post-apocalyptic world, he finds a library, and and while he's celebrating, he breaks his glasses.
That's no fun. Brian Wensloff says Shout Factory just recently announced that they are putting out the Oh God films on Blu-ray.
Not bad. I liked the first one. Of course, a lot of times the first one is the best, but then not all sequels are The Empire Strikes Back. So that's not bad. I don't know that I'd be picking up all of them, but I think the first one, especially the one with John Denver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Gotcha. And then Spidey Fan chimes in. He has a bit of a thought on how the character of Batman could be interpreted. He says, having autism myself, I feel like with the way Batman acts, I feel like he may have a form of autism. Plus, if DC came out and said it, it would be great because the Rogues Gallery are about mental health awareness with his villains that he encounters.
That's a good thought. That seriously is a good thought because, the spectrum is broad.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that. And they have touched on the psychology of Batman, especially in the last 20 years. Or he could be having like a form of PTSD, and he is, not really diagnosed, but he's found his own treatment for it, which is basically breaking the jaws of every villain in Gotham. So, there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of. I think that is super idea there, Spidey Fan 62. And the thing is, right now DC is I will say they are going through a bit more awareness about their characters right now. They're doing a lot to increase the diversity,
Oh yeah.
ethically,
Mm-hmm.
or ethnicity, excuse me, of
Yes.
a lot of their characters. Like they have a brand new Wonder Girl who falls into
Mm.
that category. And I understand the story is really great. I haven't read her book yet,
Sure, sure.
but they've just released a volume on honoring their Asian
Oh,
superheroes,
there you go.
and they are going to be doing a series of books in June to celebrate Pride Month. So
There you go.
I would say, Spidey fan, keep your eyes open. It would not surprise me if somebody at DC did something like that. Now, it's going to take somebody very sensitive, is the
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Oh yeah.
But some of the best characters I've seen that have been inclusive in the last few years have been handled with extreme sensitivity. And I'm really like Ms. Marvel at Marvel. G. Willow Wilson wrote some
Mm-hmm.
terrific stories where she's not a white bread Christian girl from the Midwest. You know, her faith in Islam informs her every decision, which
Mm-hmm.
is great characterization.
Yeah.
I love those stories. I seriously, I picked them up out of sheer curiosity at first,
Yeah.
because I've been hearing about the political factions in the comics that I won't bring up any more than that, but found it to be an incredibly fun title, like the very early Spider-Man by Lee and Ditko. So yeah,
Oh well.
but yeah, let's keep pushing for that, Spidey fan. I think that's a super idea.
Well, there you go. Amanda chimes in. She says, Ryan is a great promoter. Amanda, get out of here.
He is.
I am not. And then Willow says, I'm inspired by the both of you. Thank you for the kind words, Willow says.
Oh, Will, you inspire us. I think I can speak for Ryan in this regard, but you put out so much great work on your own, and you always take the time to promote not just the Hanging with the Web show, but also our shows too. And we want to thank you publicly, and thank Garrett for allowing this to happen. We hope that we can help each other more and more in the future. Thank you for everything you do, Willow.
Yeah, keep on keeping on. And Carlene says, talk to Ted Davies about his coffee sponsor. Good Lord.
I probably need to. Thank you, Carly. Love you, hon.
In regards to Dating 101, Grant Lankard says you don't ask if a girl wants to go into the basement. Gosh darn it. That is so
you
true.
know that. I know that. Ryan knows that. But we had to school somebody about it.
And then Amanda chimes in about your story about how you met the love of your life. She says, so romantic. So many emojis. Look at that. Oh, my goodness.
Thank you so much. We're
She
still in the honeymoon phase, as if you couldn't tell.
I'm telling you. And then some gentleman or some person named the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS says, arise, Morris Monster. I arise. Wait, Saturday, Fez Boy. What the heck?
No, we need to do this like we do on my show. Arise, Morris Monster, arise! Wait, it's Saturday, Fez Boy. What the hell? I'm everywhere.
There you
Christian
go.
Basil, I'm in your thoughts, your hopes, your dreams, your nightmares. And also, please watch The Legend of the Traveling TARDIS every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central, because it's always a fun show. Melanie Dean runs a terrific show. Christian, yeah, he's all right, too.
And then Carl Witzman says, I'm sorry I'm late to the broadcast. We had to run into town. That's all right, Carl. You didn't miss much. Just, kind of a big deal and a big interview with a big guy who's got a big personality. I'm just saying.
Got a big mouth. I've just been blathering for the last hour and a half.
I know. Seriously.
Thanks, Carl. Love you, man.
And then Legend of Traveling TARDIS says, don't remake everything unless there's a reason for the remake that straightens or enhances the story and not turn it into a WTH, what did I just watch?
I like that. Now that's a good thought. And I especially don't like remakes or reboots if it's strictly for the money grab. And the thing is, the audience can usually tell, I think. Now, I am all for every generation having their own version of a lot of legacy properties. But by the same token, I don't see how you can remake like a Casablanca or a Citizen Kane or a Duck Soup, because there is just a lot of magic in the acting that goes on there and the kind of chemistry, like in this case, Bogart and Bergman that they had was just like palpable. And it's not the sort of thing you can manufacture. So, yeah, I agree with you completely on that. There has to be a really good reason, and money never better be in a part of the conversation.
And speaking of remakes, don't ever remake the Maltese Falcon, because if you do, I'm going to come up there and I'm going to hurt you really bad, because that's another Bogey and Peter Lorre film. So don't mess with it, brother. Anyway, Carly Carlene says, my favorite Peter Lorre was Arsenic and Old Lace, which, by the way, I've heard a lot about it over the years. I have not seen it yet. So
it is wonderful. It was the very first stage play I ever saw when I was 7. And it's one of my favorite plays, and it's one of my favorite movies too, Carly. I love that movie. Peter Lorre is wonderful. And there's a wonderful line in there. Raymond Massey, who was one of the original Mercury players under Orson Welles, there was this line about where Gregory Peck tells him, well, you look like, or not Gregory Peck, but tells him, well, you look like Boris Karloff. Many times on stage, Boris Karloff played that role. And when that line came about, you look like Boris Karloff, the audiences immediately, that was probably like the creation of the Easter egg. So,
well,
but it's a funny as hell story. It really is a funny story. And it's a legend, and there's a reason why I think it's one of the funniest films around.
Right. Well, the last 2 comments, rapid fire here. We're going to wrap things up. Spidey Fan says you should get a sponsor from Jack Septic Ice Coffee. I'm not sure what that is, but maybe we'll look into it somewhere down the line there, Spidey Fan.
Send them to me. I promise.
Send us links. Send us links in the chat, or send a link to the Rising Tide Publications page, to be more specific. And then Carl Witzman says, I spent part of my morning sending new computer links to other broadcasters. I'm just saying, bro.
Right. Okay, I'll have to ask you about that. And sorry I didn't make the green room last night. I got busy.
No, there you go. It happens. It happens. Carla Carlene is plugging themselves by saying, Ted and Carl Cigar Show is going to have a special guest on next Thursday. It's me, just saying. Well, there you go.
It's going to be fun. That's going to be great. Seriously, it is a fun show. And Donna Carly Carlene is a fun lady, and she's a terrific writer. Get her books and Carl's on lulu.com.
I'm going to have to check those out as well. More books and more names added to my docket. Thanks a lot, Brian.
You're welcome, Ryan.
Yeah, anyhow, we're going to make this twofold here for us, Brian. Any upcoming projects you can tell us about, and where can everyone find you on social media and everything you have coming down the line?
Okay, we are currently working on a project with Charles F. Milhouse, who is the author of the great Captain Hawkland series, available on Amazon, and the Pulp Reality series, 1 and 2, both available on Amazon. And hope you're doing well at the sale today, Charles. And he's got a show today in Ohio that hopefully he's doing well at. And plus me, you can find me mostly on Facebook or YouTube, where every week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we do Nevermind the Furthermore, which is creative conversation and coffee, and me drinking a lot of it mostly, and Clever Title Pending on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And this week's special guest will be Grant Lankard, talking about his second crowdfunding campaign for a fantastic book called Beowulf. You all got to check it out. And otherwise, you can find me on Amazon and Smashwords, where I have various books that you are sure to find amusing, including this one, Sadestein. That's my big seller there, as well as my series book, Volcana. I am working on the sequel to this later this year. Currently, like I said, I'm working on a project. Also, I am on Patreon as Brian K. Morris, where we are ramping up, showing you my first draft Flash novel, my very first Pantser novel, called The Terrors, and it is about African-American superheroes in World War II. And so far the comments have been very good about it, so I'm very pleased to say. But Patreon, YouTube, Facebook, that's pretty much where you'll find me. And hope you'll keep supporting this guy here, because he always produces great content, and he's a super guy to boot. So please keep following this gentleman here. And if you haven't shared and subscribed to his channel yet, please take a moment and do so, because it helps him so very much. And thank you very much.
These are the reasons why we call him the Mr. Rogers of the internet, ladies and gentlemen. But thank you once again to Brian K. Morris for being our guest this week on this episode of And I Quote. My name is Ryan of Nerd Culture. You can find me and everything that we're doing here on all forms of social media at It's Nerd Culture. Check out our YouTube channel. New videos are being posted each and every week, so don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. do all that stuff. And this episode of End I Quote and every episode of End I Quote is powered by Poddex. Poddex are the hottest new tool for podcasters looking to have more meaningful conversations or gamify their podcasts. Simply shuffle them up, ask a question, and let the content just roll. Get yours today at poddex.com and be sure to use the promo code NERDCULTURE to get 10% off your order. You're not going to want to miss out on that. It's a great opportunity, great service, great cards, good tunes, cool brew, good buddies. We feel great, and we hope you do too. But in the meantime, my goodness gracious, what have I done to myself?
What have I done to you? Oh my God.
Gee willikers. But anyway, to wrap this all up, ladies and gentlemen, to all of you out there, stay healthy, stay strong, stay safe, and above all else, read books. Take care, everyone, and enjoy your week or your weekend. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Welcome, Glasscock Park, to this glorious day.
Today is your lucky day. We got some great stuff. This is Glasscock Park.
Marvelous.
Thank you.
Come on, let's go, let's go. I don't have all day, people.
Now, it's time.
Tell your friends, huh?
I'm GW Pomager.
I'm Dina Marie.
I'm Sage Ia.
I'm Thomas Carter Rochester.
Hey, I'm David Thompson.
Hi, I'm Kevin.
And I'm Mia.
Hi, I'm Mark.
Hey there, this is Dave Adams.
Hi, I'm Rosemary Rose.
Jerome Conner here.
Hey guys, it's Josh Bauer.
Willow Schuyler.
I'm Cosplay Michael.
It's your boy Country.
I'm Ryan Permison.
And I'd like to ask you guys,
Please subscribe.
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 Subscribe. Subscribe.
Please subscribe to HWWS.
Web TV.
Great bunch of people.
And don't forget to smash the bell.
Ring that bell.
Smash that bell.
Hit that bell.
Hit the bell to be notified.
Hit the bell to get notified of new shows.
And videos.
You're going to want to do that, so do that soon. So we can cross that 20,000 mark.
And get us to 100,000 subscribers
To 1 million, and 10 million, and 100 million.
on HWWS.
Web TV.
You really like it. I guarantee it. Thank you.